Hi, I'm Chelsea.
And I'm Sophie, and we are here to help guide you to the why behind your wellness why.
Come join us on our journey.
Welcome, everybody, to today's podcast. We have a guest with us, Jillie Johnston. We are honored, and will you please tell us about yourself?
Yeah, well, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me, and everyone thank you for joining and giving me the space in your day. So I'm Jillie Johnston, and I am a worthiness coach. And so I help really high achieving, really driven, ambitious women feel good enough for the legacy that they want to create and create a life that sets their soul on fire. And so in addition to this, I do this in many ways, right? So I do one-on-one coaching. I have a membership called Doing It Scared, where I don't help create brave women, but I help brave women see how brave they really are. I hold epic retreats in really cool locations and get to do really fun stuff like this. I also have my own podcast called The Worthiness Mindset. And so I kind of have a multifaceted life. I also live in a van and have lived in a van for almost 4 years, and I've gotten to travel all over the US, in Canada. I'm currently in Alaska. And that piece of it of like creating this unconventional life and doing things scared and not really having a model for what kind of life I wanted to create, but just decided like, no, I want to try. And like all of the naysayers came up, all of the people who are like, why are you doing this? This is irresponsible. Have you thought about this? How are you going to build a business, et cetera, et cetera. And I kind of have done how I've done everything else in my life, is just like, I'm going to figure it out and watch me. And so that has just really been in the past, 4 years, we built it out ourselves. And then we got married here in Alaska. So I now get to travel with my incredible husband and our awesome cat named Soso. And I get to spread this message and hold events. Yeah. So awesome.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining. I was really excited to have you on. I've highly talked about you to Sophie. We connected a while back and you just inspired me on so many levels. First of all, I think your life just is very cool. I will live vicariously through you in your van life. I don't know if it's something I could ever get myself to do, but I am so fascinated by it. And I love to travel and all of that. So I was just fascinated personally and professionally. I love what you do. So I'm excited to have you on and telling us a little bit more about the why. So of course, with our podcast being Wellness Why, we love to talk about the why behind things, the why behind some of our habits, some of our decisions, professionally, personally, all of that type of stuff. So Jillie, take us back a little bit to the beginning, whatever that comes to mind to you as to your journey, to how you got to where you got to today and what brought you to where you are today. And the big question, like the why. And then once we do that, we can maybe talk a little bit more about what you're doing and the impact that you're having on people. But let's start with the background a little bit.
Yeah. So I call myself a recovering perfectionist and recovering people pleaser. All I've ever wanted is to like make people feel good, make people feel happy, to keep the peace, right? And that was something that I took on from a very young age and felt like it was my responsibility to make other people feel good and manage other people's emotions and kind of show up as perfect. Because I felt like one of my young stories was, if I was perfect, then I could be loved and then I could control the situation. So I spent my whole life, like I have never once been grounded. I was never once put in detention or whatever else, right? I was a straight A student. I was on the honor roll. I, was in all these clubs. I played soccer. I was on 4 different soccer teams. I made varsity as a freshman. I had a goal of playing Division I athletics, which I did. And so it was always this like high functioning, high achieving, check off the list because I'm good. And if I'm good, then good is gonna happen to good people. Right. And so that's kind of like how it constantly went through. And yet after college and after doing everything I was supposed to be doing, In that my parents also got divorced and I was I was older, right? I was in my early 20s and also became kind of, I've always been the mediator. I've always been the glue. And so this really like rocked my world in terms of love because my foundation was turned around. And so it sent me on this deep journey, like right after college, like of what is love. And so I started reading articles and I started interviewing people and I started reading books and I got really obsessed with love because I felt I was really cynical, but I didn't want to be cynical. I'm an idealist and I like that about myself. And what it led me to is what I found is that people who are most successful, not just in life, but in relationships, which is like what makes people feel happy and fulfilled in life, is that they loved themselves and that they saw themselves as whole and that they saw themselves as enough. And they didn't need someone else to complete them. And that as they kind of went through the journey and as life gave them lemons and gave them adversity, they still showed up okay and like had this deep self-trust. And so I was like, that's what I want. And like, that's what love means to me. And so I started pursuing this idea of self-love and I started holding workshops and I started talking to women. This was in my early 20s and it started gaining a lot of traction. But what I found was that when I would hold one-off workshops, people would come and I would have women write love letters to themselves. And my hope was to collect copies of these love letters and compile a book and then use the book to like spread this message and then support women empowerment organizations and to send girls to school and like get this message out. But what I saw was happening is like women were showing up, but then as soon as they left and they didn't get the love letter done, they put themselves back on the bottom of the totem pole, on the bottom of the priority. I saw all these really beautiful, powerful women settle in relationships. I saw all these incredible women filled with potential give up on their dreams. And I'm in my 20s, I'm like, wait a second, if they're giving up, like what about me? Like if they don't believe they can make it, how could I ever make it? And so I was watching, I was like, wait, there's something here. It's deeper than self-love, but they don't believe that they're worthy of experiencing the love that they want to have, of experiencing the life that they want to live, of going after the dreams, even if they don't make it, even if they fail, they don't see that they're worth trying.
How powerful of you to feel like, oh my gosh, like I can really make a change with this. Because being in your 20s, there's a lot that goes on in your 20s. I mean, we're all laughing right now. Caitlin, you're in your 20s right now. And so I mean, it's a challenging time for a lot of women. And so the fact that you were able to start this so early on and I mean, as you had mentioned in your bio, which I'm super excited to dive into all the things, but like you do so many different things that impact women. So thank you so much for sharing all of that so far.
Thank you. It is. And like, yeah, so if you're in your 20s and you're listening, girl, it gets better. It gets better. Hold on.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too is like, you can do it. Like, I mean, I think that's the other thing I'm hearing from your end too. Like, I remember when I was in school to become a dietitian, like I was shadowing private practice dietitians and like in the back of my head being like, oh, like that would be so amazing to have my own business and do my own thing. But like, I'm too young. Like, I don't have the experience. I'm too young. And like, do I regret my path? Absolutely not. Like, I think my path led me to where I am today, but also I think so many times, like in your 20s, it's like, oh, I don't have this experience, or I'm not knowledgeable, or I can't do this yet because of my age. So to hear that you started your journey and your path in that time is like so amazing to me.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think well, first of all, that's such an ageist idea, right? Ageism works in both ways, of young and of old. And so like we're either too young or we're too old, right? And I think just pointing that out, because fighting against ageism is like one of the things that I'm so committed to, because it impacts women more than it impacts anyone else. But secondly, around this idea of like, I believe in doing it scared. And I believe that we don't, like, I think that we all have value. And this was something I was thinking about the other day, actually, of I was given this opportunity to actually hold a workshop for a Fortune 500 company with VPs and directors. And this was a few years ago, like before I had the same experience that I have now and the depth of experience that I have now. And in the moment, I was like, oh man, they should hire someone else. They should, like, they'll probably get way more out of it if they hire someone else. Who am I to do this? Right. And I was like downplaying all of my experience. I did a TikTok about this the other day. But I realize, and I want everyone to hear this too, is you don't have to be the best to be valuable, right? You don't have to know everything and be an expert to change someone's life and to share something that is going to change your entire, like, kind of plane of existence. And so this is where we get to fight against perfectionism. And this is where we get to say that I get to be valuable and enough as I am. And this idea of having to strive to be more, to be better, to be the best all the time, let's just knock that out of here. Like, let's throw that in the garbage, because that holds all of us back from giving the value that each of us have in this world.
Oh my gosh.
I love that.
100%.
In college, one of my guy friends actually told me, I don't know if I was talking about a track race or something that I was so nervous for, or a presentation. And he said something kind of similar. He was like, you're never going to be the smartest. You're never going to be the dumbest. You're never going to be the prettiest or ugliest or skinniest or fattest or any of these things. We need to find like this just middle ground and be okay with it, because I mean, all of us live in the middle ground and there's literally nothing wrong with it. And I feel like what you kind of described was a little bit of imposter syndrome too at one point. And imposter syndrome is like the worst feeling ever. And I feel like we can all relate, because we've all felt that, which goes back to the, like, I'm not good enough, I'm not XYZ, but you don't have to be. If you were like, not everyone thinks J-Lo is like beautiful. It's like, you're never going to be able to please 100% of the people, and you're never going to know 100% of anything. It's not even the smartest man or woman on earth do, because it's impossible.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so there's someone just gave, I forget what her name is. It starts with an R. She's amazing. I'll have to send it to you guys after I find it. But she gave a college graduation speech around imposter syndrome and how did you see it?
Was it the bicycle in the
Yes,
face?
bicycle
I saw
face.
that. Yes.
Basically, the first kind of thing of imposter syndrome was back in like the late 1800s when the bicycle came out. And the bicycle came out, and it was like, for men it was a toy, for women it was their freedom and liberation. In order to ride a bike, they started wearing pants. And this was, again, they started going to different towns, and they started like kind of gathering, and it was a very empowering thing for women. So what they started coming up with is this term bicycle face, of like when your eyes are wide and like wind is blowing in your face. And they started saying that it was like a medical condition, I think, right, Sophie? It was like they were saying, oh, watch out for bicycle face, to try to scare women from getting on a bike. But what it was just the control thing. And so now it's like, that was back then of like, there's no such thing as bicycle face. Like, that is dumb. There's no such thing. And now the modern day thing is imposter syndrome, is like, it has been put on women and labeled as imposter syndrome, right? When there is no such thing. It's a made up thing, but it's it's put out there to make us doubt ourselves more, instead of realizing that this is just like a part of everyone's journey. So don't give it weight. Did I miss anything, Sophie? I totally butchered it.
No, that was perfect, because it's true. It's just like these things made up, like related to the body, hip dips. It's like these things are just made up, I feel like, in each field, so to speak, to make you never feel good enough. And it's just society. Don't even get me started.
Well, and like what it comes down to is to come back to this idea of worthiness, right? And why is it's much bigger than us. It's cyclical. It is something that is systemic, right? It stems from a white supremacist patriarchy idea of what is perfect. And then if we don't feel perfect and qualified enough, then we are not going to put ourselves out there, right? We will continue to play small. And so that's the importance of this work, is like, this isn't just about you or me, right? This is way beyond that. This is like generational cycle breaking. This is empowering like each person to no longer dim and play small, and to feel enough so that they actually punch up, right? And break through the systems and the programming that are meant to keep us small. And this is what worthiness is. Like, this is my why. It is so much bigger than me. And this is what gets me up every day to say, okay, like, even though it didn't work out as I thought, even though my journey doesn't look the same as what I thought it was going to be, and I've had to pivot all these things, and I continue to put myself out there, and I fail and I try again, the why comes back to each woman that I serve and the ripple effect that she has, and how is this going to change the generations to come.
I absolutely love that. Thank you.
Totally. She's got an earful, so you're welcome.
I was just going to ask, because I know I don't know the exact stat, but a lot of jobs that a woman is maybe the slightest bit not qualified for, they tend to not apply, whereas a man like would apply. Do you have any female clients that struggle with feeling worthy about like around like their career and applying to jobs and stuff?
Applying to jobs, starting businesses, right? Like claiming, even if they want to be a stay-at-home mom, like owning their value as that, right? It's to go for raises, to be a badass CEO of a company, and realize that they don't have to feel guilty for taking time off. Like, so much of what I do is help women find joy and balance in the badassery that they've created. So one of the things I love to say, and I like kind of, this is so true, is we can create and manifest anything we want in life, but unless we feel worthy of it, we'll self-sabotage and push it away. So my thing is like, I help women not self-sabotage. You work so hard to create what you wanted to create. And like, whether it is in a relationship, whether it is in a business, whether it is in your health, whether it's just in your life in general, and the peace and the joy, I help you keep that and then experience by feeling worthy and enough as you are. And so all of that, I do all of that with my clients, and it looks like so many different things.
I love that. Thank you for sharing all of that. You've talked a lot about what led you here and your why, and I'm still so fascinated by everything. But let's talk a little bit, because you do so much now. You had mentioned in the beginning, like a bunch of different things that you offer and ways you work with individuals and retreats. So take a couple of minutes and tell us a little bit about how you exactly work with clients. Is that one-on-one? Is that group? Tell us a little bit about your retreats. Just basically tell us what do you have going on in life right now? You're a busy woman.
Yes, I know. I have my hands on a lot of things, and I'm multi-passionate, right? And I have a lot of things that light me up. And I think that that's one way how we fight burnout, is we do the things that light us up. And so I work with clients one-on-one. I work with a lot of female leaders who are ready to experience that peace and that joy and that balance in the life that they've created. And so that is one way that I work with clients that I absolutely love. I have a new membership called Doing It Scared, because I also believe that coaching and personal development should be accessible. And one-on-one coaching is not accessible for everybody. And so I have a low-cost membership where if you have a dream and a goal of something that you want to create, we're doing it, right? So I have people who have started podcasts. I have people who have written books. I have people who would put themselves out there for love again, who have left relationships, who have retired, who have moved to different countries. Like, whatever that is, that's what we're doing. And kind of dealing with the perfectionism and the things that hold women back from creating that. And I've also, in that group too, part of Doing It Scared is also confronting hustle culture and the shoulds, and we're not here to hustle and to push. We're here to really understand that you're worthy of going after that thing, regardless of the outcome. I hold retreats. So I've held one in Joshua Tree. I've held one on the Oregon coast. I am going to be holding one in Portugal and Alaska, potentially this winter in Central or South America, that's to come. And I also do in-person days. And so this Doing It Scared, I'm also creating in-person day events with that as well. And then I also have my podcast to make sure that these conversations that I have all the time are also free and accessible and adding value to everyone around. So I think right now, that is what I have going.
We're going to have another podcast when you add something else on, right? Oh my goodness. Thank you. And how can people find you, since we're already on this topic of what you do? What's the best way for people to get in contact with you and connect with you?
Totally. So on Instagram and TikTok, I'm at Jillie Johnston Coaching. My website is jilliejohnston.com. So it's JILLIE and then JOHNSTON.com. And so I would say that those are the best ways. And my podcast is on any platform, The Worthiness Mindset. It's also on my website. But feel free to, reach out, look it up. I love hearing from people, ask any questions, comments, whatever else. Like that is what I'm here for, is connection.
Yes, I know. We all love connection, and it's so great to connect with you. Sophie, is there anything else from your end that you want to chat about, or anything from your end, Jillie, that any last takeaways you want people to hear?
I would like to know if you have any. Do you have any like balance tips or worthiness tips? Like 1 to 3 tips for like either or total or anything? Or like a small everyday thing or something.
So something that was mind blowing for me, and it's super simple and it's a question. Well, one, when you start going into, your body is a really great cue for you, right? And the sensations that happen in your body, there's nothing to be afraid of, right? Like so many of us, I struggle with anxiety. So many of us are afraid of feeling. And yet our body is just trying to communicate with us when it needs something. So if it is anxious, it actually needs soothing and calming and reassurance, right? If it is in fight or flight mode, right? Again, we need to learn to calm our central nervous system through various practices. And so I want to encourage people of like, when you start going down the shame spiral of I'm not good enough, right? Whenever it's triggered. So like if you make a mistake, if you get feedback, if you realize that you didn't do something right, if something doesn't go the way that you thought it was going to go, right? Whatever that is, pay attention to the sensations in your body and start becoming aware of them so that you know when that thought process of I'm not good enough or I've made a mistake, which is all worthiness, comes up. And then I want you to ask yourself this, or like bring up this question of, could I be enough anyway? Like, what if I was enough, even the times where I don't think I am? What if I'm still enough, even the times where I'm feeling like I'm not? Like, what if I still am enough? And start pondering that question, start poking holes in that really deeply programmed and ingrained idea of you aren't enough unless X, Y, and Z. Or you aren't enough unless you accomplish something, or that something looks perfect. Start poking holes in that piece of it. So I would say those 2 things. So really become aware of your body, listen to the cues. When that comes up, ask yourself those questions, begin poking holes and like, what if I still am enough? And then, so the definition, this is what I take people through in a lot of my workshops. In the definition of worthiness is like the quality of being good enough. And so I call them unworthiness stories. So look at your life and say, where has the I'm not blank enough story? What is your I'm not blank enough story? And how has that shaped your life? Where did you learn that from? Where was it modeled? Where did you witness it? How has it shaped your life? How has it shaped the decisions that you've made? And what if you didn't have that thought anymore? What decisions would you make moving forward? So deep. It's hard to harder to give. It's really easy tips, but there's very deep work that will make a big difference. So I think that answered your question.
Yeah, that was perfect. Thank you.
Great.
I really like to hear that, because I feel like this is almost parallel to what I do with some of my clients. A lot of what I do with clients is a lot of like motivational interviewing, where so many people with health and worthiness too. I feel like sometimes, and anytime you get coaching, like you're being coached on something, sometimes people just want an answer, like, well, just do this or do this. And I work so much with my clients on, okay, well, if I just tell you what to do, that doesn't mean you're going to understand your body or really implement that. So kind of like what you were saying with like being more in tune with your body and then asking yourself a question before even making a change with anything, just like recognizing what's going on. I do that so much with my nutrition clients. So it's so fascinating to see it just like parallel in a whole different area, because I agree on every single layer of that, of like, you have to be understanding and be in tune with what is going on with your body before even, I mean, that is what's going to help you make the change and take it to the next level in whatever area, whether it be with worthiness or nutrition or exercise, all of that type of stuff. So I love that it's all interconnected.
I love it. And I love that we're on the same page to like to reaffirm what you're doing and what I'm doing. And so thank you for sharing that. And I'm so grateful. I think what I'd like to leave people with is like, you're enough as you are right now to start, right? You're enough. Like, what if you didn't need anything else? What if you didn't need that extra certification or that website or that person's approval, but you just started? And to me, like, that is unreasonable. And I want to create more women being unreasonable in this world, like in a good way, right? Like, let's go be unreasonable. Let's start doing it scared. Let's go and see our worth. And like I said before, punch up, because that is revolutionary and it is rebellious, right? And it is resistance. Like, let's let our enoughness and our joy and what we're doing in the world and our boldness be the resistance of the movement that we're creating. And we get to do that together.
Absolutely amazing. I love that you ended with that. And thank you so much for being on. We appreciate your time, and thanks for everyone listening. We appreciate you taking the time to hop on and chat with us.
Thank you
Thank you so
much.
much. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.